Ladies and gentlemen, Carrie's Lakeside Tours, proud to present Angel and Angelo. Hello. Good afternoon. Hey.
We're Angel and Angelo, and we're here to entertain you for a while. Play some music, a joke or two to help to make you smile. Would you like to ride in my beautiful balloon? Would you like to fly?
Dan, here it goes. Talk about some of the old times. Like most of us from Philadelphia, I started working the old clubs, the 13 Club, the SA Club, the Erie Social. And then we put a little band together called the Charms. Our first big gig was at the Chez Paris on New York Avenue in Atlantic City. That was back in the days when Lillian Reese and Sonny Stano were famous. They were working a place called the Fort Pitt in Atlantic City. From that band, we broke the band down and went into a smaller version of the same group called the Charms, and we went to New Orleans. Worked the Dream Lounge on Bourbon Street. And that was an experience within itself. Right across the street was a place called Papa Joe's. And they had jam sessions all night. And I can remember listening to a trombone player there. And I believe the name was J.J. Johnson. Don't quote me on the name, but somebody of that stature. And he was working with a cigar box in front of the bandstand for tips. It was a hell of a time. Al Hurt's place was across the street. Down the street on Bourbon Street was Pete Fountain. And that was after he did his big stint on Lawrence Welk. Pat Gallo doing auditions in Newark, New Jersey. So I took a shot, went up and auditioned for Pat. And it was a show type of a group, but very good musicians. Anyway, to make a long story short, the group was fairly successful in its own right. We did a lot of work in Chicago. And through a friend of Pat's, we ended up in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace. I guess this was 1972. We were on the bill at Caesar's. Nero's Nook was the name of the small lounge, but it was a breakdown of the big room, seated about 300 to 400 people. Went a lot of places with Pat. We worked in New York City at the Plaza Hotel. Years ago, they had a room downstairs called the Plaza 9. It was a brand new concept. And we worked there with Mongo Santa Maria, opposite Mongo, and his 8 or 9 piece band. Because Mongo had offered me a job on the band, he liked the way I played, but unfortunately I didn't play flute. I never got into the flute, and that was my demise. I couldn't go with it because of that reason. And then from New York we went back to Atlantic City, the 500 Club. We were doing 3 or 4 weeks in there for Skinny. And a lot of people, I guess back in those days, the Pier was still alive. And one night, the Fifth Dimension came in. And we actually got them up on the stage to do Up and Away with us. We had an arrangement on their tune that we used to use in the show, but they came up and they did it. And who was in the audience? Guy Marks. Well, when Guy saw this all happening, after they leave the stage, we invite Guy Marks up. Guy Marks actually did an impression of every member of the band. I mean, every one of the people in the Fifth Dimension, and then he turned around and he did the whole band that I was working with. Pat Gallo, Arlene Carroll, myself. He imitated everybody, almost to the T. It was hilarious. The guy was a crazy man. I turned around and worked with him again in the Bahamas at the King's Inn. He was a headliner in the main room, and we were in the lounge. And he was just a straight-up regular guy. He was easy to be around. He liked to hang out, go drinking with the guys, have pizza, and just hilarious. He could imitate anybody. But after I left Pat, I put my own thing together, and eventually I hooked up with Kirby Stone from the old Kirby Stone 4, Bubbles, Bangles, and Beads. and I guess a lot of people remember Kirby. They were on Ed Sullivan quite a bit. Used to do the Arthur Godfrey show. He wrote a lot of commercials years ago. Let Hertz put you in the driver's seat today. We got around pretty much with Kirby, too. We opened the St. Thomas property. Worked the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. We used to do that about 4 times a year. First time we were out there, Lou Rawls was the headliner in the lounge. And he was a sweetheart of a guy. Then, of course, Pat Cooper, he was crazy. He worked there all the time. And then, of course, there was San Juan, Puerto Rico. The El San Juan Hotel for Lou Puro. Sammy Davis Jr., Robert Goulet, Jimmy Durante. A little story about Robert Goulet, which to me was very fascinating. He came up to sing a number with us one night. We had a tune called On a Wonderful Day Like Today. The tune had 5 key changes in it. He made every one of the key changes. He made the ending just like the chart was written for him. And I went out and congratulated him, and I said, a lot of people couldn't do what you just did and just pick it up on the cuff. The man had great ears, has great ears. But Bobby Goulet was a beautiful guy. And of course, Jimmy Durante, he walked in with Lou Puro one night with a couple of showgirls on his arms. I think it was his birthday. It was, I don't know, 79th or 81st birthday. The bum looked great. He was a very magnanimous guy. I mean, he was all heart. Came up, said hello to everybody, shook everybody's hand. Which, you know, a man of that stature doesn't have to take the time, but he was just a regular Joe. Nothing pretentious about him whatsoever.
Well, we thank you so much. And before we go, we would just like to say that on behalf of all the people who are assembled here, we would merely like to mention, if we may, that our unanimous attitude is one of lasting gratitude for what you folks have done for us today. So therefore we would merely like to say, hit it, George.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We made it through another night, another show.
It seems a bit bizarre,
Yes.
but things are the way they are.
We have to pack our instruments, it's time to go.
Until we see you again, God bless you all. Thanks so much for being so nice.
You know, Danny, it just occurred to me. The strongest closer I ever heard was after Sam Butera went out on his own after Louis passed away. He had the greatest line at the end of his show. And I think that's the way I'm going to end this interview with you this evening. He would just say to the folks, you know, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And with that, my friend, I'll say good night, and as always, thanks.